So up next, we've got Pritesh Mawdia, who's head of technical support and development at Shocklogic, and he's going to be talking about the art of conference programming, including abstract management. Now, during the session, you can ask your questions through Slido, which we've been using all day. Nothing to download. If you just go to slido.com in your browser and the event code is ETL18. You can also upvote questions that you'd like of other people's and so on. So make sure you send in lots of questions. We'll be taking them at the end. So let's intro Pritesh.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Pritesh Mawdia. I am the technical support and account manager at Shocklogic. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the customers I work with. I love the partners that we work with. And most importantly, my team. I couldn't do it without them. We're here to talk about abstract management, the programming side of stuff, and how to build these amazing programs, whether it be through an abstract or through a presentation that's submitted. Is my clicker working? Huh, okay. So what are abstracts? Abstracts are a piece of software, a piece of text that is submitted. It's mainly scientific content that is provided to an event that is either speaking on scientific content. It could be also for the corporate world, sessions that are taking place where people are telling you about the next hot thing or the top hashtags or whatever it may be that the event is about. So as these abstracts come through and they have specific content, right? Some of them might be having topics. Some of them might be having keywords. They're very driven to the topic or the event in your area. You have a lot of abstracts which will be submitted through a period of time, and that period of time is also very important because I'll talk about it a little bit later about how we go into uploading the posters if you're doing postering, also e-posters, which is very new and traditional, old poster presentations as well, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But your traditional program really has all your rooms, it has all the times, and you have a single session in it. That's your traditional program. Your more complex programs have, within each session, a speaker, and sometimes many speakers for a session. Because abstracts are one of those things that have many authors, right? And these authors can then say, yes, I'm presenting, or no, I'm just a co-author. And then, of course, within a session, you'll also have things like chairs who will be managing the session, making sure that it all runs very well, and things like that. So the process really is you have all these submissions that come through into the online system. We marry them based on the topic of that submission, and we marry them to reviewers, sometimes also known as judges, and sometimes even the scientific committee. And what they do is they review these abstracts. They give it a score based on 1 to 5, 1 to 10, and sometimes even comments on these abstracts. And then they even go through, in some cases, the ability to say, if you log back in and make these amendments, we'll accept it as an oral presentation. Otherwise, it will become a poster presentation. So these are the processes that one can manage through this abstract process. And then at a later date, they end up becoming either approved for an oral presentation, approved for a poster presentation, and now more commonly an e-poster presentation as well. And then we have brief orals and things like this for some of the more in-depth scientific content ones. We also have here what we call late-breaking abstracts, right? And these are the ones that end up becoming very closer, usually about a month or two before the event itself. They come through as your late-breaking abstracts. And in these cases, we get in sessions of up to 100 sessions, we have 900 oral presentation slots for these people to come in and present these presentations. That's 70% of all abstracts that are received sometimes in the last 24 hours. So that's a lot of volume that comes through, and that tells you that the amount of resources required in an online system to be able to provide this needs to be flexible and feasible and scalable too. So the keys to abstract management, what would they be? Understanding and setting up the system. So there's a layer there, right, of what do you want to turn on, what kind of questions do you want to ask, how many words can the abstract be, how many characters can the abstract be, the abstract title, how long can that be, are they allowed to upload images, are they allowed to upload videos, are they allowed to upload full papers, whether that be a PDF or a PowerPoint or a Word document, right? We want to get clear on getting all that content correct at the very beginning. Being proactive and staying ahead of the game, right? Understanding easily when is your review deadline? When are you going to have these abstracts go and be presented to reviews, and then they can go in and start logging in and making those happen, right? You also want to be very clear on keeping the data clean, right? When I say keeping the data clean, I mean making sure that your subject lines are there. So the introduction for a scientific content, it may be. It could be your results, your methodology, your conclusions, that those subsections are all there and valid as well. So once you've got that kind of data coming through, you then want to go through and set up the layout for the submitters, the layout for the reviewers, and also the fields that are going to marry the two, which is the submitter to the reviewer. So if I give you an example, we just did an event in Glasgow for the NCRI, National Cancer Research Institute, and they had a number of abstracts that came through, which were then categorized based on different topics. And these topics are also what reviewers would necessarily be experts in. And that's how we marry in bulk all the abstract submissions that came through to the reviewers that are experts in those areas. So that's one way of doing it. The other way would be to do it individually, right? So you take all your abstracts, you find all your reviewers, and you go, that bunch is going to go to him, that bunch is going to go to him, that bunch is going to go to her. You can also do it on an individual basis, where you take one abstract, you assign it to somebody, and do it that way. You tend to use that process a little bit later on, once you've done all the assignment, and one of the reviewers says, hang on, I've got a conflict of interest here. I know the person that submitted this, right? You have a choice there in the systems as well. Do you want to do blind reviewing? How many of you know what blind reviewing is? No? Okay, so blind reviewing is where the submitter has submitted, they've stated all the authors, but the reviewer, when they log in, they don't get to see that, right? So they don't see who submitted this stuff. But if they recognize the content and they know that they were an author of that, they could still raise the conflict of interest, and then you can unassign that abstract from the reviewer and reassign it to somebody else to make sure that it's reviewed fairly, right? There's also a two-part process to reviewing. In some cases, 3 parts. So you have a preliminary reviewing first, where all the abstracts go in, they get reviewed by everybody in a order. Of those, an amount is selected and accepted, and the others are rejected. They then go into round 2 of reviewing, and this is the more rigorous round. This is where we ask them, how do they do on their content? How do they do on the research? How do they do in the upload or the full paper that was being submitted? And they get to rate it on all these different things. So once you've gone through that process, it's a case of making sure that you then start building the program. So your master specifications for some of these more complicated programs, you want to be asking forward-thinking questions. You want to be asking, and sometimes we don't even know what they are, right? Sometimes we're so new to this that we don't know what we don't know. And it's okay, because many software companies out there will have a team of people that have done this for hundreds of events, right? So go to these software companies, talk to them, ask them, how do your customers today do the abstract process? Okay, how do they have them invite the reviewers? Do the reviewers get to register themselves? How do we import these reviewers if we have them in a different system? Can we connect this to an API? Now, it could be that in some cases, you're taking your abstracts and building them in a different software already today, right? And then you go to a technology provider and they say, yes, we want to do the e-posters with you, but all our abstracts are over there. That's also okay, because we can connect to different organizations and different softwares to get the abstract content, pull it across on our side, and then have those individuals that are confirmed for e-posters to go back in and upload the actual poster digitally, And then that organization can continue to do the digital part of the e-poster. In many cases, some organizations are still moving between e-posters and the traditional posters. So in some cases, you're doing both at the same time, and that's also okay. The possibilities with technology are absolutely unlimited to us. This timeline that I'm referring to is really important for you guys, okay? Because in a traditional program, you want to be clear on where's the cutoff date for the reviewers to stop reviewing so that you can then start putting these abstract submissions or these sessions into play and building your sessions. Building the program is key, right? Because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of discussions. And we provide a platform on which you can do all of this remotely or with your teams in a single room together. And there's no more printing pages and pages and pages of abstracts with their titles and the attachments to those, all of that kind of stuff. We do it all online, and it makes it a much greener event for you guys to do. Not only is it the timeline for the reviewers, but it's also the timeline for you to make that program available on your website, yeah? And how is that going to work? How is that going to impact the decision-making process much earlier on, right? So what I tend to do and what I tend to advise many of our customers is start from the moment you want to go live on the website. When is that program going to be made there, right? And work backwards. Give yourself enough room to say, if my program's going to go live then, I need to have the reviewing and the scoring done by here. I need to have the reviewers logged in, give them 2 weeks, 3 weeks to do the revisions. If it's a two-part review, then you want to allow a little bit more time, right? Because you're going to go through the first batch, you're going to go through that process and say these are accepted, these are rejected, these are accepted based on the following amendments. Because you're going to have to go back to those submitters and say, hey, based on these comments, make these changes and we'll make it available in the next review. So, and then obviously you'll build your timeline in that way, and that's really, really key, because the last thing you want to do is have this content be delayed, not only on your website, but also on your mobile apps, right? Because you're going to make this available for people to go into the apps and download it there and view it at any given time. And we've all been told, release your apps early, right? We've all been told this, and there's a key reason for this. It really creates engagement with people. It really has them go in and start communicating with other people that are registered to the event as well. And then seeing some of the content has them talking to other people. Now, the key thing about Abstract Logic is that you can actually go ahead and, what's my slide there? You can actually go ahead and see an overview of all the different points that you're at from a single screen. And in there, you can see, is this paper in review? Has it been reviewed? Has it been accepted? Has it been rejected? And is it in a session? And if it's in a session already, it won't allow you to put that same one at the same time on the same day in a different session, right? And you want to have a system that caters to this, adheres to this, so you don't have these conflicts. So the same abstract can be placed in a different session at a different date and a different time. There's different phases, of course. You've got the client briefs. You've also got the forms that you want to set up. You've also got inviting your reviewers. So there's all these different steps in the overall process. So communication with your client is going to be key. Communication with them about anything and everything to do with the submission, anything and everything to do with the online program. How do you want it to look? Do you want a calendar view? Do you want a list view? Do you want all the times on the left and the rooms along the top? Or do you want it the other way around? Asking all of those kinds of questions is going to be really, really key at the beginning. Chasing reviewers is a tough job. I've been there in my space, and I've done that. I actually lead a team of developers. I actually come from a technical background, and one of the things Shocklogic prides itself on is making sure that the techies, the developers, know processes. There's no other failure in the world. You can build great technology, but what's the point if you don't understand how to use it, right? And if you don't know how to use it, how are you going to expect customers to know how to use it? So it's one of the things that we want to be able to say, hey, have a look at this. This is how you use it. This is how you process the data within it. And once you've done that, getting your reviewers and chasing them to say, hey, you've got until this date. You still need to mark X amount of abstracts. You've got until this date. And then there's a cutoff point. After that, you need to make decisions on, do you reassign those abstracts to somebody else that haven't been marked? Do you reassign them very early on? All of those kinds of decisions will need to be made along the way. Excuse me. One too many. So when you get on site, you've then got the on-site process. It's obviously, you've got all your speakers, they've come through, you've marked them as speakers in the system, you've marked them as presentations in the system, and then you go into the on-site process where they come online, they come on site, they go collect their registration badges, and then they go to a place where they have to go and upload their content, right? So you can allow the system to upload their content beforehand as well. And again, using these wonderful terms. Who doesn't know what an API is? Raise your hand. Don't know what an API is? Okay, so an API is where system A talks to system B, okay? And that means you may be collecting all your abstracts over here, but there's another company, right, that is collecting all the presentations. Very similar to this presentation here. I registered to the event, but I didn't have a place to upload my presentation. They were given via email or some sort of place, right? And they got it well in advance, which was really great, because we came back with a USB saying, have you got it? So that system allows you to say, hey, submitters, approved submitters, go ahead, upload your content here, and we take that through the API to the guys that are going to be developed or deploying on site and saying, this person is speaking in this session at this time on this date, and here's a little bit about them. Their profile, their bios, all of that kind of data goes across to them, and then they have a seamless method to take all this information and put it in the right place. So that's what you really want to be achieving for. To your left is where you want to be. To your right is where you don't want to be. Okay? If you find yourself in this space, change who you're working with. That's what I would say. Duplicates. This is a key thing. One of the things that you will find is an abstract can be submitted once, and a person can submit many of these. Okay? So what you're looking for is a profiling area, a single unique space where one can log in or create an account, log in, and then submit as many abstracts as they want. Right? What you're also looking for is that person is going to register at some point to the event, right? So you want to be able to say to them, hey, also there's a registration space. Go ahead and register to that space. And that's okay if you're doing it under the same roof or if you're doing it with a different provider. It could be Events Force, it could be C Event, it could be anyone out there, right? As long as though you're trying to get to the space of not having that individual duplicate or re-enter their data over and over again, then you're getting off to a great start. Okay? And there are softwares out there that enable one to create a profile in the abstract submission process, because that's one of the first steps that we have, right? And then you go into the registrations, and then you go into the program building, and then you probably end up doing the mobile apps last. But that process of having a single space to log in, and then going into book your accommodation, book your registrations, and so on and so forth, use it in many different ways, and use it so that the individual only has to create one username and password for a system, and that can branch off to other places such as Eventsforce or CrowdComms for the mobile apps and things like that. And there are systems out there that do talk to each other already today. Just have the conversations with your providers, okay? Of course, we spoke a little bit about good data and bad data. Clean your data as it comes through, as I mentioned previously. The challenge really is understanding the systems that you're working with, understanding the connectivity of that particular system to other systems, for example, the e-posters, the mobile apps, how does that all connect to each other, right? So one of the things that Shocklogic provides is a platform on which you can have your registrations come through, your abstracts come through, your e-posters be uploaded through the abstract system, and then it reflects in the mobile app. All the people that are registered end up in the networking space. They can send each other messages. The abstracts that have been submitted will end up in the program as long as they were approved, of course, and accepted. And then all the content of that also ends up in the mobile app. You can search by the authors, the chairs, the faculty, making sure when you create each session that you're putting in the faculties for those sessions, the chairpersons for those sessions. And all of that, when you make that single change in Abstract Logic or I would hope in any type of software, that it updates your website. It updates your mobile app. You don't have to go to 3 or 4 different providers in order to make one single change through an Excel spreadsheet. That's how you don't want to do it. Okay. The next level. So multiple abstract topics. So you'll have a theme. Within that theme, you'll have a number of topics. Within that, you'll have 1, 2, 3 topics, because an abstract can be based onto many different topics, or it can cover many different areas or topics. You have different types of sessions. So you have a non-abstract driven session and an abstract driven session. These are very different, right? So this presentation that I'm giving right now is a non-abstract driven presentation. It's just a normal presentation that a speaker would give. And then it goes into the abstract driven sessions, which are really the submissions that came through, and then they end up on the online program, and those will be dealt with in a particular way. The traditional abstract book is now being very quickly replaced with the mobile apps, but also you can take an export of this online content and put it on a USB format now, right? And many people are now creating the lanyards with a USB clip on it. I've seen it so many times. They're like little 8 gig, 4 gig USBs, and on it is the abstract book, and everybody gets it because it's content media. You can also make those available online on your website, so you can see that either the day before the event or on the event. These are decisions that you will make throughout the thing. And then, of course, all the different types of chairs that you'll be dealing with. How do you get them to see all this data in one space? How do you get them to log in and say, this is where I was on this day, or this is where I'm speaking on this session? That single unified login space, once a chair or a speaker or a faculty member has been assigned to that session and they log in, they will see there what session they need to go to, what time it's at. They can even go ahead and upload their presentation into that space as well. So when they get on site, they can log back into the space and just go to it. So things like that is really what you want to be doing. Do we have time for questions? Yeah? Any questions? Either I did a really good job in explaining that, or you understood nothing of what I said. No questions?
Be brave. There must be some questions. No? All good?
No.
No?
Right.
All done. So thank you very much, Pritesh.
Thank you for your time.
Where can our lovely audience find you in the show?
We are at T1, stand 412.
So
Come
in
and
the
talk to us.
main hall, turn left, you'll see them.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.